So how long have you been dancing, and do you primarily lead or follow?
Hmm. Well, I've been dancing since I was 3, so about 30 years. I've been partner dancing. Oh, yeah, 19 years.
Wow.
um, I primarily I primarily follow, although there have been a couple phases with a couple dances where I would say I was more close to a primary lead.
Okay. How does dancing make you feel?
I think it, to be really honest, depends on the moment. I think sometimes dancing makes me feel exhilarated or connected to another person, or connected to myself, or connected to the music, uh, or connected to a community. Sometimes dancing makes me feel really depressed. Those are the minority of the times. Otherwise, I don't think I would keep doing it. But there's always heights to be attained and places to go and things, which is, I think, also part of what brings me to it. But it's, I think, a spectrum.
Cool. How would you describe blues dancing?
Blues dancing is an American jazz vernacular dance, and it comes from this very rich tradition of dancers coming from the African American tradition, and it's got so much depth and breadth to it that there are so many dances in it, and you can keep reaching deeper and discovering more things and doing more historic research and discovering more ways of doing things that you know how to do already within your own body.
Cool. Then, where do you dance, and how do your experiences with blues dancing vary from one space to another?
I have the fortune of getting to dance all over the world. Uh, and so my experience with the blues dances is extremely varied. I think that there are some places where I think from place to place you wouldn't almost recognize it as the same community of people. The thing that I've found that is a common thread between all the places that I dance is there's a very warm, friendly, welcoming feel from all of the communities right now. That seems to be really a thing that people do, which is really lovely. Yeah, I think that that's the thing that stands out to me the most that is similar from place to place.
Cool. Has blues dancing changed since you first began? In what ways, and what do you think contributes to these changes?
Absolutely. Uh, when I started, and it wasn't even nearly as far back as a lot of people who've been around longer than me in this community, but when I started Friday Night Blues back sometime in the 2000s, they were still distributing CDs that were like the Blues Mix CDs, and Portishead was included. Uh, and definitely there's a lot more like sexy body rolls, and just the way we thought of dancing was really different. And the idea of looking at where blues dancing has come from wasn't nearly as predominant as I think it is now in today's scenes. Um, though there were definitely people who were saying, "Hello, over here, guys. This is this stuff." Definitely, of course, Damon Stone, for example. Uh, yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought on that.
That's all right. How does dancing with different partners impact your experience?
I think that one of the things that I like about social dance is it's improvised, and that means that you're not having this same experience, hopefully ever. And so, where you are and who you are at the moment, and what the music is, and where you are and who you're dancing with, changes dramatically. And I think that who you're dancing with is one of the things that has intrigued me for a very long time about this social dance dynamic. So I would say that my dancing changes dramatically from person to person. That said, I think one of the things I've worked on over the years is to be my own dancer and be my own individual, and have my own voice as a dancer and still be myself, whether I'm dancing with this person who started a half hour ago or this person who's been dancing their entire life, and to still to receive what they're bringing to the dance and to also keep who I am and what I bring to the dance.
Cool.
Yeah.
And in your opinion, do men and women experience dancing differently?
I think that men and women do not experience dance differently inherently. I don't think there's some biological gender thing that does cause that. I think that there are differences societally. Like, I think most of us who grew up here, a lot of women are encouraged to dance growing up, and we get to go to our little classes and wear our leotards and our tights and have our ballet shoes. And not everyone gets to do that, of course. But I think that if you are a little girl in our society and you're like, I want to dance, there's a lot less pushback against that. I think for boys or men, the idea of dancing, they can often be greeted with skepticism, or sometimes even ridicule. I think that today, as an adult getting into dance or social dance, I think that both men and women that I talk to have been like, I got into it to meet somebody. Although I think more men than women, I think more women are often like, I just want to dance. But then interestingly, I think once people have been dancing for a while, I usually find that the I just want to dance tends to kind of even out.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Cool. Do you feel that either role or just your primary role sets up any particular gender or power relations with your partner?
I think it's interesting. It's something I thought a lot about when I decided to become a dance instructor, because I'm also a feminist, and I was like, am I devoting my life to this thing that's, encouraging heteronormativity and traditional power-based gender roles? And I think that the way dance, especially partner dances, maybe used to be taught, there'd be a lot of very power dynamic words used, like the leader is in charge, the follower is receptive, the leader has the ideas and the follower accepts them, or a lot of these words that I think I even found within the blues community a little bit when I was first starting, but I don't really hear those words in the blues community anymore. I really, and maybe I'm not hearing, maybe they still happen and I'm not hearing them, but I think that for the most part, we've started really looking more at this is a dialogue. These are two dancers, and the person who is leading has certain responsibilities and roles as a lead, plus also they're a dancer, and the person who is following has certain responsibilities in this role, plus also they're a dancer. And I think that the power dynamics within that then they don't exist as much as this dialogue. Whereas I think that if you are looking at this idea of shush, follow, just do what you're told, then I think you start getting into some of that a little bit.
How would you describe femininity and masculinity?
I think the words femininity and masculinity are extremely hard to define. They're very charged words, I think, often. And there are ways that, as a society generally, we often will describe them. I started, when I started leading many years back in blues, I started doing the same solo blues movement two ways: one either soft and rounded and fluid, or sharp and hitting. And would ask people, both dancers and actually waiters and just anyone I could find, which of these do these look masculine and feminine to you? And people would usually say yes, and I would say, well, which is which? And it was across the board agreed upon that there were these certain ways of moving that were very feminine, and these certain ways of moving that were very masculine. Do I think that that's inherent, or that is what masculinity and femininity is? No, and I think that also I think that I tend to have I self-identify as very feminine, but I think that I also have traits that are often described as masculine. Being pretty straightforward is often described as masculine, but that's definitely something that I, as a very feminine identifying person, would say that I also identify with, just as an example.
Okay, well, I feel like you've already somewhat addressed the next two questions. If you want to expand on them, feel free. Which would be, in what ways do you feel you embody feminine characteristics when you dance? Be the first one.
Okay, awesome. again, from what feels feminine to me, I think that I tend to use a lot of soft or rolling or smooth movements. Um, I've also been playing recently, I guess, with taking some of the things that I perceived or read generally as more masculine and putting them on my body in a way that plays with that. Like, because I tend to have a body that is read as very feminine, I think that it can have a very different effect. And so, kind of challenging what is viewed as feminine and masculine.
So you also lead a bit. Um, do you tend to choose more masculine movement while leading, or do you still prefer, or do you prefer more feminine movement?
When I first started leading on like a master's class level, I was like, all right, all the masculine movement when I'm leading, and sometimes even like I'll wear my flat shoes and I'll wear pants and I'll put on my fedora. I think a lot of us at that time who were taking leading seriously did that, and in a way, I think it helped because it helped me change my mindset, and I didn't want to be a follower who leads. I wanted to be a woman who leads. And so I think for me, a costume change is always a great reset. Uh, but I think that now one of the things that I'm really jamming on is when I'm leading, playing with feminine movement, because I don't think that feminine movement and strong leading are opposed.
Yeah. Now, in what ways do you express your gender identity while dancing? Do your movements, clothing choices, and/or character reflect your gender?
Mm, yeah, absolutely. And I have the privilege of being, identifying as female and having been born in a female body. And so I think for me, it's very easy to then express my gender. I don't really face any challenges in that. Like, I think society really accepts that. So I like dresses and skirts and high heels, and I like the way they swish when I move in them. And so I think that that also affects how I move, because I often find that wearing different things will change how I move. And so I also, I think, dance very much within my identity as a woman, although occasionally I will try to play with kind of a more neutral zone. I've had phases, I think, where I played with that a lot more, playing with like having a masculine ethos, if you will, um, and what that would mean for me, not necessarily for anyone else. I don't even know if anyone else would notice it, but for me, I do. So.
um, on a similar note, what shoes do you wear when you dance?
Yes. I go through phases. Sometimes I'm like bare feet or as close to it as possible. Sometimes I'm like, my I can totally dance the blues in my 4-inch tango stilettos. Uh, Currently, I'm obsessed with remixes, so I'm wearing a lot of like 2, 3-inch heels. But yeah, that'll vary. It'll also, I think, depend on what kind of dancing I'm doing, how tired my feet are.
Hmm. Yeah. And what differences do you experience when wearing different types of shoes?
I think that different shoes will change where your balance is sometimes. Recently, I've been playing with a lot of things that don't change that much. I think that like any footwear, like is it flexible? Is it stiff? Is it that it'll change the way you move, or being barefoot or being in socks. Um, I don't know that like flats versus heels change the femininity of my movement. I definitely like am able to like lift Mike and twirl him around while I'm wearing heels, and so that I don't. I think that as long as they are a good dance wear, they're fine.
Cool. Do you feel that you accentuate your femininity or masculinity for competition or performance?
For performance, I think I will accent my femininity if that is what the performance calls for. For example, Mojo Aristocracy, we did a very like girly thing. If I was in another piece years ago with a performance group in San Francisco, and I was the only female leading in the particular role called for more masculinity, so I accented that more. Um, for competition, I think a lot of it just depends on my mood at the moment and who I'm dancing with. I think there are certain leads that I would play off of more femininely. And so I think it's more who my partner is and what the music is that would bring out some of that. Sometimes the lyrics have such a story that that pulls a more of a character feeling from me. But I don't think that I think there have definitely been times when I played it up or like girled it up, if you will. But I think right now, I don't think that's a consistent thing.
Cool. Um, what do you think about female dancers accentuating femininity or masculinity for a competition or in performance?
I think that it's great as long as that it does not take away from their dancing. Like, if I think I've seen, not necessarily recently in blues, but in some dance forms, I see people almost doing a satire of their gender identity. And I mean, that could be interesting if that's what you want to do. But I think that sometimes people get so into that that it starts to feel like it's a thing put on top of it, and it's distracting to me from the movement within it. It doesn't feel as authentic. But if, and this is of course me making a judgment about what's authentic or not, but if I am able to perceive something as authentic, then it is part of the whole thing for me, whether somebody is female and being masculine or whether somebody is female and being feminine. I think that it's, yeah, I think as long as it's a part of the dance.
Cool.
And feels authentic.
Do you believe that age is a factor in how a woman might express their gender on the dance floor?
I think that my expression of my gender and how I relate to myself definitely changes as I get older. But I think that we all have our own complex individual relationships with our gender identity and how we express that. And so I've seen much older women being very sexy or very feminine or very masculine on the dance floor, and I've seen much younger women being all of those things as well. So I think that it's more where somebody is in their individual path rather than age.
Why do you dance? Why did you start? And what's kept you coming back?
I dance because when there's this flow state, the psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi talks about, and it's about flow, this state where you are in the zone is another way of putting it. And I think that dance is one of the best ways I've ever experienced to get there. I dance because I love creating things, and it's an art form that I feel really drawn to. I like the fleetingness of creating a piece of art that won't be replicated, and that maybe only you, or maybe only you and your partner will notice. I like the camaraderie and the community, and I love teaching, and I think that that is another thing that really keeps me in dance. I might get tired or depressed about my own dancing, or tired from traveling, or burnt out on social dancing, but teaching is always this high for me. I love helping people discover themselves and their movement, and so I think that's one of the things that really keeps me coming back to dance. I started dancing completely, like at all, when I was 3 years old. I was extremely pigeon-toed, like that, and the doctor was like, "So you can put her in leg braces, or you can put her in ballet." And my parents were like, "Well, ballet seems like it would be more pleasant for her," which mostly it was. And so, getting from this to being able to bring my legs to here, even to neutral. Still, when I'm tired, occasionally my foot's like, "Ee," and I'm like, "Oh no, go back." And I think I've had a couple points in my life actually where I stopped dancing. And what's brought me back is that I just really missed it. I think that I could live a happy, fulfilled life and find other things other than dance, but there's just something so awesome about it. And sometimes I have to take a break and step back and be like, okay, am I still choosing to do this? Is it still worth it? And because there's a lot of things that aren't so great, that are tiring. But overall, I think there's so much joy from it. And those moments when I can either help somebody find joy while dancing with me or taking a class from me, or I find a moment in the music, even a song that I've heard hundreds of times, that suddenly sounds different and it's so perfect, or somebody does something ridiculous that is amazing, I think. Or just those moments when I walk into a room and realize that there's so many people there that I care about so much that I would never have gotten a chance to meet. So that community aspect, I think, also, if there were a lot of people who were mean, I don't know that it would be harder to come back. But all of the wonderful people, I think, also.